Good morning. Today we're going to talk about real estate investors and the types of insurance policies that they need to be aware of. One of the things I see in the industry is real estate investors will call an insurance agent, say, "Hey, I'm buying a house," and the insurance agency will give them a homeowner's policy. They won't ask more detailed questions. We do that at this agency, so we understand exactly what that home is, what that structure is, and then we also need to make sure we get it insured correctly. There are a lot of different policies. It is not the real estate investor's responsibility to figure that out. It's the real estate investor's responsibility to tell us what is that home and what is it going to be used for, and then we will decide on the type of policy we need. Some of the policies out there, again, we talked about homeowners. There are seasonal dwellings. There is builder's risk. There's vacant. There's landlord policies. There are renovation policies, multifamily dwelling. There's property management insurance. There's owner occupied policies. There's flood insurance, and there's Airbnbs. So now we'll go through each one of these. First thing I tell people is I'm not an attorney, but you should have these. If these are going to be a rental property, Airbnb, vacant, fix and flip, renovation, builder's risk, you want to set this up into an LLC. The reason you do that is you separate your personal from your professional liability. If you're going to keep it in your personal name, then what we will do is get a personal umbrella, which will be on top of your primary home, on top of your primary auto, and we can put these rental properties under them, or we can have a separate umbrella policy that we can make sure protects you from legal liability. The biggest risk in doing any of the real estate investment is liability. It's not the structure itself. We'll insure the structure. If we have a total loss, we'll certainly rebuild it, but it's people slipping and falling and suing you. These places can sometimes be vacant for a period of time, and people do target that. Lesser's risk, a commercial insurance lesser's risk policy is something where the owner does not have a business there, and he only has tenants there. In a lesser's risk policy, we're going to have general liability. We're going to have business property if needed. The most important coverage is loss of rents coverage. What that means is if there is a claim, if there's a fire in one of the spaces, and that tenant has to, can't operate for 2 months, we will replace 2 months of that income. There's some different timeframes and things like that, but basically that's what we do. You also have to make sure that your tenants are classified on a lesser's risk policy, meaning if you have martial arts studio, that's more risky than having a retail store. So that needs to be rated on the lesser's risk policy. And I see that a lot where that's not done correctly. You should also require tenants to have insurance and list the landlord as an additional insured and have that policy reviewed by an insurance agency. Because if there is a claim, the tenant needs to have liability, it needs to have insurance, as do you. If someone gets hurt in one of your spaces, then the tenant and the landlord are both going to get sued, and you want to make sure that you have multiple policies to take care of that lawsuit. Vacant land. If you are in the process of buying vacant land that you're going to be building on, or you're just going to buy vacant land to hold it, you do need a policy. People can trespass on that property, they can trip and fall, they can hurt themselves, and they can sue you. When you have a vacant land policy, there can be no buildings on the property and no construction being done at all. So this is prior to doing any construction. The land's vacant and it's going to remain that way for quite some time. Seasonal dwellings. If you own a home and then you decide to buy a second home, if you buy a second home down south or up north, depending on where you live, these are called seasonal dwellings, meaning you only use them in the summer or you only use them in the winter. If, for example, you split time between properties, then they would be called secondary homes. You do have to have one primary home, but you can have multiple secondary homes. Builder's risk we just discussed. Vacant properties. Vacant properties are when no one is there. If it is a real estate sale or someone has moved, we can do that as a vacant. If it's under renovation and you're doing a fix and flip, then that's a different policy, and we do have to rate for that. So make sure we know what's going on at that property at all times. Landlord policy is simply you own the policy, you own the structure, and you have tenants there. Anything under 4 units is personal, anything greater is a commercial property. Homeowners is when you live there. It simply is your toothbrush there.